Hello and welcome to today's LOL Esports Round Up, where we cover the LCS series from last night, the LPL series from this morning, LCK regular season, and the LEC playoffs from this evening. Predictions: I'm 241 and 121, went 3 and 2 on this board here. In the LCS, NRG and TL duked it out. NRG would win 3-1. Palafox 26-6, 35, 33% of damage. Contracts 8-6-51 in the jungle, so mid jungle duo went 34-12 and 86. Yeon 14-7, 20, 34% of damage. He had the highest DPM out of both teams in this one. Yeah, he had almost 1,000 DPM across 4 games, so I think we need to give Yeon some credit. Dealing the damage he did on KSA throughout this series. He and Summit, it was like a 2v8 situation. In my opinion, I mean, Core, I guess, did his thing, but couldn't get enough done. APA struggled mightily, and that's why Palafox gets MVP. I thought he neutralized APA well, and he also carried team fights when he had to. Summit took it to Dokla. Dokla had a couple moments where he popped off on Renekton specifically, but at the same time, he died a shit ton. Summit played a really good Jax game. Frankly, when he was on Jax, I think both times he was the clear carry for TL. You know, it was one of those deals where Summit's trying his hardest, Yeon's trying to deal damage, but it's just not enough because FBI was able to match Yeon in some team fights when it mattered most, and Palafox was just more relevant. Contracts probably had a claim to be MVP as well, but in one of the games, his smite was just not on point. He gave 2 key smites away that allowed TL back into a game. That might have been the game TL ended up winning. A lot to do with that. He blew a Baron smite, and then he also lost out on Drake, Soul Point, to Core. And TL had a weird look in this one as well. They had Core on set twice. I don't think we've seen a ton of set. We very rarely over the last couple weeks we've seen it pop here or there, but for somebody they clearly identified it as a champion they wanted to play with, and it really didn't. I didn't think it did all that well. I thought TL was going to win this series, to be quite honest with you. In my opinion, similar to how I felt about Fnatic XL, TL are just better in every which way, and it just didn't pan out. NRG are beating teams that have winning records, so if NRG somehow get to Worlds, everybody watch out. The only team that can match NRG will be the LCK 6th seed by that point. Obviously, that's a joke, but at the same time, I don't know what the deal is. They're playing teams that are better. Everybody's just taking them for granted. You kind of wish it was CLG instead of NRG, only because CLG would have went out, with a good split. CLG are now competitive, and being called NRG is what it is. So Palafox set the pace. Contracts I thought was excellent, except for those 2 blunders, which took him out of the MVP race for me. So that is what it is. LPL, Top Esports, LNG. LNG went 3-1. Scout was my MVP. His Nico games were outstanding. Gala, 24-5 and 14, 32% of damage in the win. Zika, 12-3, 20. Jackie Love, 19-13, 12, 30% of damage in the loss. Top Esports win was a very slow game 3. I believe it was one of those classic, I think Breon were, cosplaying in this one because it was just super slow, very unlike the LPL. And Top Esports were able to just kind of poke down LNG until they took the base. Jackie Love on Sivir was able to find some kills, and that's what got them that win. Now, as far as LNG's wins are concerned, like I said, Scout's Nico in games 1 and 2, absolutely disgusting. One of the better Nicos we've seen so far this year. I would only say Canyons is probably better. And Hung, I thought, played very well on the Rel in the game that he played that, setting things up. Gala, obviously dealing damage over the top. In the game, he played Ziggs. I think that was game 4. He was a difference maker in key team fights, just dropping bombs and dealing a ton of damage. And frankly, that was the difference because just Top weren't able to match the damage output, frankly. Once in a while, they will show the, damage for team fights, and in key moments, Scout came through in game 4 as well. laying it down. Zika did solo kill Wayward at one point. As far as the jungle is concerned, I thought Tarzan set the pace against Tien, similar to how Tarzan actually had set the pace the last series against Kanavi, being facilitator. Like, Tarzan's really doing well in that role. It's just a matter of the rest of the team keeping up, which is why JDG ended up beating LNG in the end because of the AD diffy. But as far as getting his team in a good position, Tarzan's done quite well for a little while now, or better yet, years. Probably should be the right term. I thought LNG would win 3-1. I thought Rookie was going to be the difference in the game that they won. It wasn't. It was Jackie Love, but that is the deal. LCK T1 KT. KT go to 15-1. T1 fall to 7-9 as KT win 2-0. Aiming was MVP, 18-11, 34% of damage. Cuz 1-0-28 in the jungle. Gumayushi 3-8-4, 28% of damage in the loss. Honestly, looking at these stats reminds me a lot of the first time these teams played, and Faker was in that one. Just KT absolutely rolling them. BDD was MVP for game 1 on the Nico. Pop Blossoms were on point, and he was gapping Poby in CS, despite Poby being on Jace. I don't know why he's on Jace. I just don't know. We put Zeus on Rumble, and then Poby on Jace. So we have our solo laners as carries. That's just not the vibe. It's just not the vibe. KT have it right. Now, I will say Zeus did solo kill Keen in game 1, but BDD was just so strong in mid lane and took that lead and ran it down the throat of T1. Game 2, aiming was disgusting on Vayne. It was just an absolute clinic, and that's why he got MVP, because frankly, I thought BDD on the end, he did fine, but at the same time, the Vayne carry was so much, I guess, more MVP worthy than the BDD Nico angle. In the end, both games were pretty lopsided. T1 just are just falling apart without Faker. So every loss, Faker's MVP status and GOAT status just rises. DRX HLE win 2-0 as they go 11-5. DRX 4-12. Zeko is MVP, 13-18, 32% of damage. Grizzly 6-3-24. Fate 3-6-8. 40% of damage in the loss. DRX in game 1 threw hard. A big throw. They were ahead for quite a while, but then slowly started getting picked off one after another. And then a key team fight in the Baron pit, HLE took at like 35 or 40 minutes in that window there in the very late game. And it was Zeka's Azir and Grizzly's Viego that made the difference. And because of that, I mean, one of them gets MVP, and I'm going to go with Zeka. Excuse me, in game 2, HLE just rolled them. Very one-sided. More of what you would have expected between these two teams. Viper really taking it to Paddock and bot lane. I thought Paddock had some moments in this series, especially in game 1 on the Kesa where he popped off. But in game 2, he just had nothing for Viper and Life. Life looking very good in this series. Actually, I overlooked that in KT series. Lahen's also had some really nice engages. Kingen, very aggressive. Rascal looks like he's done at the end of one of the games, just kind of picking mushrooms in the jungle. If you get that reference, just, doing whatever, he's done. DRX, I mean, game 1, it's a shame that game 2 ended up being the way it was. It was like all the wind had been taken out of their sails. It just wasn't it for them. LEC Fnatic XL excuse me. Fnatic XL win 3-1. Oda Wamne was MVP. Abadage 24-6 and 34, 30% of damage in the win. Peach 4-9, 56. So the mid jungle duo went 28, 15, and 90 in this one. Noah 12, 11, 18, 32% of damage in the loss for Fnatic. So game 1, Abadage was the carry on LeBlanc. I thought Patrick and Limit were able to get slightly ahead of Noah. Actually, no, if I recall correctly, there was a trade of ganks to bot lane. But eventually, Abadage went bot, got a triple kill on LeBlanc, and then just became disgusting for the rest of the game and destroying Fnatic. They put Oscarinin on Rumble in top lane, and I had been saying that was a matchup that I wanted Oscarina to show up in, and it frankly didn't happen. I thought this series would have been opposite. I thought Fnatic were going to win. I said it, that I thought Fnatic were better in every role, and frankly, if you put those nameplates next to each other, I probably still feel the same way. It just was an ugly look out of Fnatic as their split is over. So, Game 1, Abbedagge is probably MVP, but Game 2, Fnatic got out to quite a lead. But it was Odoamne's Rumble that just ended up appearing everywhere and won them the game. All of a sudden, he TP's bot lane, gets a double kill or double or triple, I forget which. And then in the team fights that followed in the mid game, Odoamne was just the difference. He was on point. He served almost as a roaming support, in my opinion, but dealing the damage of a Rumble. Fnatic didn't have an answer. Oscarina just didn't have it. Fnatic did end up winning a game, a lot to do with Razork's Kindred. He would go to top lane, get Oscarina in a good position, and then also just do work as they had double AD carry. And Noah, when he's in a position where his team's ahead, can really run it up. I feel like he is not the type of AD carry that in the 2v2, I mean, I don't know what it is. You expect Fnatic's bot lane in a vacuum to win, and it just didn't happen, which is an issue. Into Patrick Limit, I would think Noah and Trimby would get the edge. Now, Game 4 is a big deal. So Odoamne brings them back in Game 2, and then in Game 4, XL come back. It's a very tight game. So frankly, I wouldn't even say it was a comeback per se. It wasn't a throw like Game 2 was. Very close, a couple K gold lead. But Odo's Gnar was huge in the mid-game to late-game and team fights. Just an absolute stud. He had double-digit kills on the Gnar, pretty much a carry on the champion. Like, he showed what a carry-oriented Gnar looked like. And out of Odoamne, a weak-side king, it was quite a thing to see. Just very surprising. And that was the reason they won Game 4. So not only did he, solo win Game 4, he solo won Game 2, and people are going to say, well, Abbedagge looked very good on the Tristana, and he did in Game 4. But Odo was the reason why Abbedagge could get in that position, in my opinion. Otherwise, Fnatic were going to roll them. Humanoid, nowhere to be found. Oscarina in Game 4 on the Jax did keep up with Odoamne in through the mid-game as the late game began, and then actually that game went down to the wire. And it was a late game team fight in topside that ended up finally making the difference for XL. But Odo was just an absolute monster in that one. I thought in games 2 and 4 he was an absolute monster, and he deserves a ton of credit as XL somehow got to summer finals. And I think anybody at the end of winter that would have heard that would have been like, oh my God, really? It ended up being the case. As far as the jungle's concerned, Peach looked pretty good as well. Finding moments to facilitate, he's like a Malrang, pretty much. And that's not because he's Korean or because it's just because he's a facilitator, really. I don't see him as a carry-oriented player. He carried on the Lee Sin, but as a facilitator, right? So he's just a really, really good facilitator. Now that he's, a little more comfortable. Sneak peek for tomorrow, LCK, Nongshim and Brion. Nongshim 4-11, coming off of lost HLE. Brion, 25th in the power rankings, 4-11, coming off of a loss against Liv Sandbox, sorry. Din, Sylvie, and Peter went 10, 14, and 36 for 951 DPM. That was 53% of damage the last time these two teams played. Nongshim would win 2-1. Morgan, Effort went 9, 15, 26 in the loss for 749 DPM and 42% of damage, so it was pretty close. We see a 200 DPM diffy and a 10% share difference. So, it will be very different. The mid 80 carries were more of an emphasis for Brion the last time these two teams played, and now Nongshim, who knows who's going to play in mid lane, whether it's Quad or Fiesta. Genji D+, Genji 4th in the power rankings, 14-1, coming off of a win against Sandbox. D+ 9th, 10-5, coming off of a win against the Freaks. Last time they played, Genji won 2-1. Pays led the way, 11-9, 28% of damage. Deft 4-4-5, 28% of damage in the loss. LPL playoffs, I think this is upper bracket finals. JDG, BLG. JDG, first in the power rankings, 14-2. BLG second at 15-1. Last time they played, JDG won 2-0. Ruler 21-2-13, 34% of damage. Elk 7-11-8, 35% of damage in the loss. This is where I say if JDG beats BLG tomorrow and BLG ends up beating JDG in the grand finals, I'm going to still personally think JDG is better. I'm going to say that right now. JDG could get 3-0'd and perfect gamed all 3 times in the grand finals. But if they beat them here, and that happens, I'm going to still have JDG above BLG. I'm just going to say that flat out right now. LEC, G2 XL. G2 6 in the power rankings, 8-1. XL 18-5-4. Last time they played, G2 won 3-2. Hansama 44-14-41 in the win, 39% of damage. That was over 1,000 DPM. That occurred last weekend. Patrick 36-17-28, 26% of damage in the loss. So we have a couple bangers as we have upper bracket finals. We have LEC Summer Finals, so that's a big deal. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, like it. Subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter. Hope to see you again tomorrow.